Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started. So today we'll continue talking about deep learning. So for the last lecture, we talked about the simple feedforward fully connected neural network, right? And we also talk about the convolutional neural network that is widely used in image processing and computer vision, right? We talk about some of the fundamental component in the convolutional neural network and what's the rationale behind those design choices. So maybe we can do a quick recap, right? So this is the very simple structure, how the CN is being built, right? So we have the basic operation of convolutional layer. We also have the pooling layer, and we can stack multiple of these layers together to make it deep. And so some of the designs, right, like convolution, are inspired for some of the observations we found in the image, right? So for some of the patterns, they are much smaller than the whole image. And the same patterns appear in different regions, and subsampling of the image will not change the object, right? So that's why we can using the pooling layer to reduce the size. And here we talk about how basically the convolutional kernel or the filter, right, will operate from the input and also the intermediate feature maps. So this is a very good animation to kind of show what's the entire process of the convolution. And one thing we have to pay attention to is the dimension of the convolutional kernel, right? So basically we have the spatial size, height and width of the filter. We also have the channel dimension, right? How many channels we want to use. So this was determined by the basically the input layer or the layer before, right? If we talk about this feature hidden layers or feature maps. So these are some of the important things we have to notice, so that when you design the network, you have to specify the right dimension so everything will match up. Okay. And here we can look at, right, what is this, different filters basically doing, right? So again, here is a very nice animation, right? Here you have different filters, right? So here, this more act like a diagonal edge detector, right? So you sliding this filter or kernel across this image, then you end up like a feature map, right? Trying to highlight there's going to be a diagonal or similar edge information in this image, right? If you change to another filter, which is maybe a horizontal edge, right? So you will generate a feature map that is able to highlight the location in the image where there is a horizontal edges. So that's pretty much what these filters are doing, and generate the corresponding feature map to capture those information. And we can also look into more details, right? We can visualize the CN, these filters, right? So these are the layer one, the weights has been learned, right? So basically these are like the fundamental edge detector, right? So you have different orientations, and maybe also, since we're doing RGB, color space, you may also have some of the filters that is specifically trying to detect a certain color combination, right? If we move to the second layer, right, and you can see there's going to be filters that is able to detect a more complex structure, right? Maybe not just a very simple edges or specific direction, is able to detect some of the, like a combination, right? Here, the circle, or maybe multiple different shapes that appear in the image. So this can become even more complex, right? When we go to a deeper layer, like layer 3. Here, maybe if you look at this square here, right? So these set of filters may be trying to detect human, right? So, and this one, think maybe this could be some of the insects or birds, or maybe there's another set of filters that trying to detect some of the features maybe from other species, right, or other objects. So this can get more complex as we build a deeper layer, and those features can be picked up. So this is another more deeper, right, layer 4 and the layer 5. So you can see we are able to extract some of the high level, more complex features from the image, or detect those complex or high level features from the image. And now we can do a comparison, right, between convolution and a fully connected layer, right? So here is a basic operation of convolution, right? You have a simple input image, and we have these two filters and generate these two corresponding feature map. And if we want to use the fully connected layer, we have to flatten this 6x6 matrix or image into a 36-dimensional vector, right? And using these hidden layers, and each neuron will fully connected with the input, right, to process the input image. So if we kind of separate or maybe dive deep into this convolution, right, in terms of the fully connected, right, we want to see if we're doing convolutional neural network, right, how each of the neuron is going to be connected to the previous layer. So here we using a 3x3 filter, right? We first operate in these 3x3 image region, and we get a corresponding value in this feature map, right? The first one is 3. And if we interpret in the fully connected layer, fully connected neural network fashion, right, we can see that these filters are only connected with these 9 values, right? You can flatten this 6x6 image into this 36-dimensional feature vector, right? So based on these kind of orientation, and you can see that this neuron here, the 3, right? Because here, if we have another convolutional layer, this is going to be used the input neuron, right? You can see that this 3 neuron here is only connected with these 9 neurons as input. But if you were using fully connected, right, you have 36 connection here, right? Which means you have more parameters. So in other words, convolutional neural network in this case will have less parameters, right? And if we go to the next position, right, with the stride equals to 1, and we generate the second value in this feature map, and we can also see this neuron, what are the neurons in the previous layer is being connected to, right? So here is going to be these 9 neurons, right, corresponding or in the input. And because we are using the same filter, right, we didn't change the weights in this filter, right? We're using the same filter and sliding across the entire image, right, which means the weights are shared, right? And this will result in even less parameter, right? If we're using the fully connected, right, we are going to using a separate or a different set of weights and bias parameters for these neuron. But in the convolutional case, so these weights are shared. Okay, so you get the idea, right? If we even go to the next position using the same network, same the filter, you also share the weights, right? So this will result in less parameters as compared to the fully connected layer. So that's a comparison between the fully connected layer and a convolutional neural network. So now we kind of specify the filter and how it's operate on the entire image. And you may have some questions like, right, so how do we specify the kernel size, right? So all these examples, you give like a 3x3, but maybe we can using a different kernel size, like 5x5, a larger kernel, or maybe even larger, 7x7, 9x9, or maybe larger, right? And so that's one particular hyperparameter, right? We need to figure out, right, what's the best choice for us. Another question is how many kernels or filters to use in each layer, right? So you can specify any number you want, right? Maybe 10, hundreds filters, kernels you want to use in each layer. So in practice, we don't have like a specific answer, right? Which kernel size you can use and how many kernels to use in each layer. This can be considered as the engineering part, right? So based on the performance, you can actually tune these hyperparameters, right? Maybe a large kernel size can be beneficial in certain application. And if you're using more kernels or filters, is able to help you to capture more information, right? Maybe resulting, better result. But the downside of using the large kernel size or more filters is that there's going to be more parameters, right? So here we only have 9 parameter. If we, omitting the channel size, right? This is 9 parameter. Here you have 25. Okay, so that's going to be another factor you have to consider, right? You also care about computational complexity. So that's something we have to think about. But usually when we, doing some of the application like image classification, object detection, usually we adopt some of the existing architecture like ResNet, GoogleNet, or other some classic network. So those kernel size and the number of kernels are you can say that's a predetermined, right? Because that's their network architecture design. How many layers to use, how many kernels, filters to use in each of the layer, and what's the kernel size. They has been predefined. So you basically just have to use them. You don't have to redefine yourself unless you want to do a customized network. Then these are the things you have to think about. Okay. Yeah, it is possible, right? Like I mentioned, but right, if you have a large kernel size, that means more parameter, right? So you have more parameters, then there's a risk of overfitting, right? And make the network difficult to learn, right? So because there's going to be a lot of parameters you have to, optimize in the network. So there's a chance of overfitting. So yeah, overfitting is another, is a topic we need to discuss about, but I will, touch upon that topic in the later slides. Okay, but that's a good question. And we also have variants of convolutional operations, right? Not just these classic convolutional kernels. There's also be variants like a dilated convolution, depth separable convolution, grouped, convolution. So they all proposed for different purpose, right? So the dilated convolution is to increase the receptive field size without increasing the number of parameters. So this depth-wise separable convolution, proposed in this mobile nets is designed for computation efficiency. So for some of the mobile application or edge computing, we need a small network that has less number of parameters and less of compute, right? So these are the designs has been proposed to specifically address these kind of challenge. And group convolution also, is aiming for less parameter and fast computation. So let's look at the dilated convolution, right? So here is another very cool animation trying to demonstrate, right, or a side-by-side convolution, right? So on the left side, this is the normal convolution, right? So you have the 3x3 filter. So basically you're gonna operate this filter across this image, right? Each position you do the dot product of these two matrices and generate a value. For the dilated convolution, here you can see that still you have 9 parameters, right? You have these are like a darker blue. I don't know if you can tell the color difference, but there's a darker blue which has 9 like a square, right? 9 values in this filter. But the way it's operate is not like consecutive element of cells, right? So it's like after a one row or one column, right? So basically it kind of increase the receptive field, right, or the region this filter is able to observe, right? Before the normal convolution or the conventional, right, it's only have like a 3x3 region. But here it's looking at a 5x5 region or receptive field, right? In this case, the normal parameter doesn't increase, but the effective receptive field is increased. And you may be wondering, right, why do we need to increase the receptive field size, right? What's wrong with just looking at the 3x3 region? For some applications, right, especially for semantic segmentation, right, you want to assign a pixel for each assign a label for each pixel. You need to know the context, right? Maybe 3x3 region is too small, right? Maybe, there's an edge or this is the boundary between two objects, right? If you have a very small region to look at, then you don't know much about the context, right? There's not a lot of global information or larger context to understand, okay, this is the boundary, right? There's going to pixel belong to other objects I have to be aware of. But if you increase the receptive field size, right, then you know a more wider context. Maybe in this case, you're able to learn to differentiate or distinguish these two different objects. So in that, the previous slide, the example is you have a dilation rate of 2, right? And you can specify the dilation rate, right? So you have a larger dilation rate means you can see a larger receptive field size. And here I'll just give you an example of this particular paper, Deep Lab. They are using this dilated convolution to extract features and perform the task of semantic segmentation, right? Basically assign a label for each of the pixels. So if we, this is the input and this is the result, they are using this dilated convolution, and they were able to increase the receptive field size and able to get a better result for segmentation. So I think in the medical domain, right? So later you will see for some of the medical image data, like MRI for this kind of tumor detection. So different type of tumors, they are kind of have some overlap, and there's a very tight boundary or small boundary in those regions. Then you need to kind of have to understand the context so that those edges can be segmented very clearly.